us as the day goes along to take part in the conversation as well. Just a little brief overview of our agenda. I'm going to give a brief presentation along with one of the planners from our office. Again, I'm Michael Looney from Milone MacBroom, and I have Tim Baird, who's a planner, with us, as well as Ellie Church in the back, and Carly Myers is also standing in the back. They're all here to help out today and provide assistance when we're doing our group work that we'll get to in a little while. After sort of brief introductory presentation, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the issues that we see as being future items of concern or things to think about for Woodbridge going forward. We're also going to have a speaker from the Partnership for Strong Communities. David Fink will be joining us, I believe, a little bit after 10 o'clock. So he will be giving about a 15-minute presentation as well. We're going to have a breakout session for group work at each of the tables around the room. You'll see there is a base map of Woodbridge, which shows a number of things, including build-out potential, open space, zoning, and we have trace paper so that folks can come up with their own plans, identify areas of town that they feel need special consideration, and just generally visually plan out how they see the future of Woodbridge developing. We'll have lunch probably between around 12 o'clock, going to 12:45 or 1 o'clock. We'll have a second shorter design session from 1 to 2. What we're going to be doing is, after the end of the lunch break, we're going to have folks stand up and give just a brief overview of what's been going on at their tables and what issues have been discussed. So everyone has a feel of what's going on at all the other tables that the neighbors are working at. Part of the design session 2 is really to start to coalesce the ideas and issues that have been discussed earlier at the initial design session, and start to come up with actionable goals and strategies for how to address the issues that were discussed earlier. At the end of the day, we'll have the groups report back on what they've come up with in terms of goals and strategies based upon the issues that they discussed earlier. I'm going to give a brief talk about zoning and how the planning process goes from being sort of conceptual plan for the community to actual regulations that legally control what's developed and what's protected. And then we'll just have a brief wrap-up closing session for about 5 minutes. So what is a POCD, or the basic question, why are we here? Why are we looking for public input into this process? POCD is really a document that's intended to provide guidance on a policy basis for both the physical, economic, and social future and development of a community. You start really with a vision of how you want the town to develop over the next 10 years. Plans have to be updated every 10 years by state statute. Come up with goals that you want to see as sort of end products of the vision and where you want to be in 10 years, and what sorts of objectives you have for the community in a variety of different topic areas, from housing to economic development and open space protection, as well as community facilities. And then finally, you proceed from goals to concrete actions that can be taken by the town and different commissions and boards to move these goals forward and actually get them implemented. At the end of the POCD, we always have an action agenda, which is a detailed breakout of all the different actions that have come from the discussion of goals and objectives for the town. And we assign a responsible party, whether it's a planning and zoning commission or a conservation commission or a particular department in town government, and give a time frame for when this goal should be achieved, so that every year the town can take a look at the plan and say, okay, how are we doing in terms of progressing along our 10-year vision. As I mentioned before, required by state law, Section 8-23, that these plans be updated every decade. The thing that has been added by the state now is that you need to update the plans to stay eligible for state discretionary funding. So from a financial perspective, it's a very important document. POCDs have changed somewhat over the last couple of decades now. We've had recent revisions to the laws regarding them in terms of what's required. There are 6 growth management principles that the state has that you have to show consistency with, or at least a lack of inconsistency. Those include redevelop and revitalize regional centers and places with existing or planned infrastructure, expanding housing opportunities, concentrating development around transportation nodes and transportation corridors, conserving and restoring natural, environmental, and cultural and historic resources, protecting the integrity of the environmental assets of your town, particularly as it pertains to public health and safety, and promoting integrated planning across all levels of government, from the municipality to the regional body, all the way up to the state. There's also a new focus on sustainability issues. It's not just things like recycling, but also your patterns of development, how energy efficient they are, and the issue of energy generation and conservation itself. Also, another item that's been added is there's now a new focus on the protection and preservation of agricultural resources as well. That's been a recent addition. So there's a number of topics that are covered under a plan, policies and goals and standards for physical and economic development, system of transportation, including sidewalks and trail systems, promoting coordinated development, identifying areas for compact, transit-accessible, pedestrian-oriented development, coming up with a recommendation for the most desirable uses of the land within the town, including a very important future land use plan, which is later in the day I'll explain how that really becomes the base for how you develop your zoning regs over the following 10 years. Looking at what is the desirable density for the population in your particular town, the state's growth management principles, as I mentioned. Housing opportunities, including affordable housing, are also an item that has to be addressed and looked at in the plan. Promoting economic diversity in housing is an important component of that. Our POCD here in Woodbridge is going to be divided along these topic lines in general: demographics, housing, natural resources, open space, sustainability, community facilities, transportation, identifying what the potential future development of the town is, and also looking at the general economy and the financial position of the town. We've started putting together a number of fact books regarding each of these topics. We have a few more to do. We have 6 done at this point. There will be, I believe, 9 or 10 in total. So those will be coming along again in the future months as we go into the summer. But what's very important to add is not just to have sort of a stock set of topic areas to cover. Obviously, there are topics we have to cover because of the state statutes requirements, but also what the priorities of town residents are. And that's really how you make a POCD into a living plan that is that sort of enshrines the vision of the community residents for the town, rather than just being a data book of different required information. So, we've noted some things early on in our planning work here. There's priorities for having sidewalks and bike paths, for recreation facilities, protecting open space, issues of traffic, public safety, talking about the school as well has been a topic of discussion, and energy as well, how the town's going to meet its energy needs in the future. So to kind of kick it off a little bit here with some conversation starters, Tim's going to come up and discuss a few of the findings that we have from our work right now that we think were particularly relevant to our discussion.
Thank you, Mike. What we'd like to go through here just a little bit before we start to get into the issues that you've raised through your comments on boards and so forth is just a few of the findings that have surprised us as we've been going through the process of generating these fact books. If you're not the sort of person who keeps up with the details of the town census statistics, maybe they'll surprise you too. So to start with, we looked at the town's demographics. And what you see here is a chart showing the gains or losses. So if bars are going to your left from the center, that shows a loss in the population group. If it's going to the right, it shows a gain. This is different age groups within the town, ranging from under 5 years to 90 years and older. And the trend that we're seeing out of this is a sharp and very marked decline in the number of people between about 30 and 50 years of age. So folks generally in sort of the prime time of their lives to be raising children. So similarly, we see declining numbers of children making up that part of Woodbridge's population. By contrast, the demographic that we see growing the fastest from 2000 to 2010 is people between 50 and 70 years of age. So this reflects a statewide trend in terms of Connecticut tending to age, but in Woodbridge we actually see this trend being amplified quite a bit. And just so you know, all of these statistics are in the fact sheets and fact books that will be available to you as we go through the process. So if you don't catch all the details out of one of these, it'll be available to you, and of course you can talk to us as we go through the process. So as a result of those demographic changes, what we're seeing is that throughout the town, with the exception of the center where the Charrette School is located, the number of school-age children has been declining by fairly substantial numbers. We also looked at the town's economic situation, including earnings, where we see, looking here, we have income categories here ranging from less than $10,000 a year to $200,000 a year or more. And where we see a sort of bell-shaped distribution in Connecticut and the United States as a whole, Woodbridge is very concentrated at the highest end. And in fact, more than 30% of Woodbridge households make $200,000 a year or more, which roughly puts you a household in the top 5% tax filers in the United States. However, in pairing with that trend, what we've seen since 2008 has actually been a decline in the number of Woodbridge residents who are employed. Although the unemployment rate is stabilized, currently standing at around 5.5–6%, down from the peak of 7% in 2008, the number of people who are actually participating in the labor force has continued to decline. We haven't really seen recovery there. Part of that might be attributable to the demographic trends I discussed earlier, but we see that definitely starting up in 2008. Pairing in with those factors, we looked at the housing prices in Woodbridge, which are the highest of its neighbors, about $100,000 or a little less on average above homes in Orange and Bethany, and then quite a bit more above the rest of the region. However, they're down about 20% from peak in 2007. We also looked at traffic patterns through the state, through Woodbridge. I apologize for the graph being a little bit backwards. At the leftmost, we had the most recent year of traffic measurements, 2012. And as you can see, it's down quite a bit from 2006. Despite, now we see some variability in that across the town, different routes. There's still certainly serious congestion problems, but overall, fewer users are actually on Woodbridge's roads. Finally, open space has been a significant topic of discussion. We wanted to provide a little bit of context for that. What you see here and on some of the maps around the room is a complete listing, or as complete as we're able to provide with the data we have currently available, of all the different types of open space currently preserved in Woodbridge. And what we found is over 30% of the town's land area is actually under some form of conservation, whether that's being held by the Woodbridge Land Trust or the town government, held by the Regional Water Authority, or under tax designations such as Public Act 490, which provides a tax incentive for keeping land in farm or forest or pasture use. So with that, Mike will get into the survey results that you've received so far and provide a little bit of context from what we've heard from other town residents today.
Thanks, Tim. We've had the survey, the town survey, up and running for a little while now. As of yesterday, at the end of the day, we had 86 respondents so far. We've been getting a wide range of opinions on demographics, housing, the school system, community satisfaction, economic development issues, questions of sustainability, the future use of the country club of Woodbridge. We're just putting those results together, and we're really going to have more information because of the rate of responses have been ramping up rapidly, probably on our May 29th continuation of this charrette, kind of our concluding session for this. But we're seeing some interesting trends and interesting data. So we've also gotten a lot of write-in comments that have been very helpful as well. So all that is going to feed into this process and be very useful in determining the vision for the future that the town residents have. So some of our participation guidelines today, just to go over when we're working in the groups and when we're speaking publicly, when folks are presenting what their ideas and concerns are, is giving everyone time to speak and to contribute, to respect everybody's ideas. But also don't be afraid to ask, why do you believe that, or have you considered such and such a solution to that issue that you've raised? So feel free to ask questions and to probe further into issues that are brought up. It's great if you can very clearly explain your thoughts or ideas and what you feel are the solutions for these issues that you've identified. And we want to note that there's going to be differences of opinion when folks discuss critical issues like the ones we'll be talking about today. But we don't want to get locked into a extended discussion on one particular item. We want to give everybody a chance to talk about all different aspects of the POCD and what's involved in putting that together. So our ultimate goal for today is to understand the town's range of values and priorities, what the perceptions of the issues facing the town and what the issues will probably be over the next 10 years are in the minds of the town residents, and to start to develop ideas for future actions. That's probably going to be the most helpful for us in terms of putting the plan together. We've done a lot of the data legwork and analysis legwork to this point, but now what we really need your help with is coming up with the ideas for future actions to take to address the issues that our analysis has started to identify. So this session today is really not so much about us as planning consultants, but about you as town residents and where you see the town headed and what are the issues that you feel are most important. We can do a certain level of analysis, look at data, go to a number of commissions and ask for their input, but it's invaluable to have feedback from residents about what they feel are going to be the most important things facing their town over the next 10 years. So that's just a basic introduction to what we're going to be doing today. I'm not sure, Jeff, if David Fink has arrived yet? Oh yes, there he is.
I don't see anything.
So in a minute, I'm going to turn it over to David. David works for the Partnership for Strong Communities, which is an organization that plays a key role in looking at solutions for ending homelessness, developing healthy neighborhoods, creating housing opportunities for the workforce and for young professionals and families. David is a well-respected expert in this area, in the housing area. He's the policy director for the Partnership for Strong Communities and is the staff director of the Home Connecticut campaign. He has had extensive experience in the housing field, but also in the worlds of journalism and government. He spent 25 years as a reporter, editor, and opinion writer for 5 different newspapers, including the Hartford Courant, the Boston Herald American, USA Today, and the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to David to his presentation.
thank you. I'm glad to be here. I'll try not to take too much of your time and tell you at the outset that I am not here to in any way suggest what you all ought to do. I never tell towns what they ought to do. I don't know enough about your town. But I can tell you what other towns are doing, and I will. I'll tell you a little bit about the housing situation in the state and what you may want to consider as you go forward. Connecticut, the way it developed, is minus a lot of the housing options in the state. Your town is not at all different from many other towns in the state, except for the lower Fairfield County towns, which grew in the 50s and 60s. Most of Connecticut towns grew from 1970 on. They built single-family homes for baby boomers like me and some of you. And that made sense. Well, now, all those baby boomers, then in their 20s or in their 60s. I know I don't look like I'm in my 60s, but I am. And they want to downsize. And the towns don't have housing options for them. So we're hearing from towns now that we've never heard from before. Many of them, like yours, Stonington, Ridgefield, Brookfield, Madison, Guilford, some rural towns, Barkhamsted, Canton, Burlington. And it's simply because they just don't have the housing options they need for their baby boomers who want to downsize, but also for millennials. Adult children want to come home to the towns that they grew up in. Towns need teachers and nurses and other people who do work in the towns. They don't have options for them. So towns are looking for ways to expand their array of housing options. The issue, however, and we all know this from the old saws about real estate, is location. Can you find the place in town that everyone agrees upon is a good place to put the options that you don't currently have and that you need? And that's going to be your decision. And with the POCD, you have to find those spots. To look at your town, and I did look at your town a little bit, you are, as I say, pretty typical. 90% of your options in town are single family. That's pretty high. About 114 towns where the single family homes are 70% or more of the housing options. You're 90%, you're among, you're pretty high. Maybe even more important, statewide, towns average between 0 and 2 bedroom units, smaller units, studios, 1 bedrooms. Statewide is 42%, you're 12. So you really don't have a very wide array, and then you have to decide, well, do we want a wider array, and if so, for whom, and if so, if you can decide then where do you want to put them. Another issue facing the state is that between now and 2025, school-age population in Connecticut will fall 9.9%, but that number is actually artificially low. It's jacked up by only 16 cities and towns that are going to see an increase. And those are mostly the cities that have lower median age and higher birth rate. Your population, I didn't look actually before I came. I'm sorry, but my guess is it's around 30% or maybe even more projected. Now that doesn't mean it will fall that way. That's just a demographic projection of 5 to 19 population. But we're seeing it all over the state. Glastonbury, I was reading in the paper the other day, is facing a huge fight. They have to close 2 schools. That will result in redistricting. And for any of us, and I have been, who've been in a situation where you have to be redistricted, it's not a fun exercise to go through. So a lot of towns are figuring out, number one, that the issue about school-age population and additional school children adding to school costs was always kind of a red herring issue. It's never been the issue, and I can answer questions about that. But even if more housing does bring more school children, most towns in the state are going to have plenty of room for them in the classrooms. Like we can fit probably 100 more people in here. It's not going to cost us any more for heat and light. And that's the issue. Most towns will have plenty of capacity for more people. Plus the fact that the units that you're talking about, or you might be talking about adding, 1 and 2 bedroom, or even 3 bedroom multifamily units or starter homes, which is what you're missing, they don't bring many school children anyway. And I have data for that too, and I can help you on that. What else can I tell you? It is, like I said, a very important exercise if you're thinking of adding housing units to do it proactively. And kind of gets to the situation you have here. You want to have a town discussion first. You really don't want to have a fight about this. You don't want to be vulnerable to A-30G developments, which you are because your percentage of affordable housing is fairly low. But you can ward that off, because if you can figure out that yes, we need more housing options and have a town discussion, and towns have had 7-day charrettes, weekend-long charrettes, they bring in a few consultants, and you can have that discussion and make sure you talk about not only where, but what it ought to look like, and what the configuration ought to be, and the design. A lot of towns are doing that. We have something on our website, a video called Idea Factories, and it shows you how 5 different towns have done this. And it's not hard to do. You need a leader. I'll tell you one other hint. The state provides what we call Home Connecticut grants. They are $20,000 grants, which allow you to hire smart consultants who can lead that charrette, who can develop that town conversation. There are no strings attached to that money. You can get it, you can do your exercise, you don't have to produce any housing in the end, and you don't have to give back the money. A lot of towns are doing that, and a number of the towns I just mentioned are. So again, it's really up to you. You have to figure out whether you want to have that conversation down. The towns that do it succeed because it tends to educate people. And you find out that the people who need the housing are not drug dealers and gang leaders who are going to move to your town. They're people who live here already, for the most part, don't want to downsize. They're people who work in your schools and your town hall. I would bet you, I've got a $20 bill in my wallet, so I'll bet anybody here that you go down the list of people who work in your town hall, and most of them, the majority for sure, maybe all of them, would qualify for 60 or 80% of median housing unit in this town. Last point. If you do this, and you want to create units that are affordable for workers in the town, and your adult children coming home, and your downsizing baby boomers, start slow. We believe in housing that's affordable for all the people you need in town. We don't believe in the mistakes that were made in the federal housing policy in this country, where we created tall, ugly high-rises in the wrong places, made of the wrong materials, and filled them with 100% of the units that are affordable. Those were bad experiments, and they didn't work out. We believe in mixed-income housing. Mixed-income housing is good for 3 reasons. It's easier to finance, because if you make 60, 70, 80% of the units market rate, the developer will have revenue stream. Maintain the landscape, fix the roof, fix the boiler, maintain the property. Second, it's more sustainable. And third, it's more palatable to the town. We have good examples all over the state. We can provide you with that. There are many, many mixed income developments around the state. They look good. People living there get along. Cops aren't there every night. So there are ways to do this that are not the stereotypical fears that most people have about mixed income housing and housing for people who need it. And like I said, it's not the people you think who need housing that's affordable, workforce housing, I want to call it, are not stereotypical feared people. So that's the deal. I'm happy to answer questions about this. I would recommend that if you move ahead, you apply for a Home Connecticut grant. It's a lot of help to a lot of communities, $20,000, no strings attached, and that helps you kind of have the conversation that you want to have. What else can I tell you? Questions? Yes?
I noticed you didn't mention age-restricted housing. in terms of 55 over type development? How does that factor into this discussion?
Yeah, towns have created a restricted housing, and a lot of the developments are beautiful, and they're very spacious, but it's become overbuilt in most regions of the state. Towns built them because they thought this is a dream come true. Lots of property tax revenue, expands the grand list, and we don't get any children we have to educate, so no school costs. A lot of towns have overbuilt it and have had to now go back to some of the people that have purchased the units and amend the covenant and to get them to agree to have people under 55 move in. I think the towns that are most successful so far have created just units at varying income levels in their town center. Really, the problem with some of the 55 and older housing has been it's out of the way. You know, it's very nice, walking trails, granite countertops, spacious, but as people age, they want to be closer to services. So a lot of towns are looking to create smaller 1- and 2-bedroom units in the town center close to the doctor and the pharmacy and the church and other services. But 55 and older is an option. You know, again, I think the town may decide they want to do that. Other questions? Yes?
Any thoughts on in-law suites?
Town. You can do that. I mean, again, you know, the issue with accessory apartments, as they're generically called, is that towns have to decide whether a neighborhood that was meant for 1 unit per acre or lot, now it's going to have 2. It's a little denser, but again, it's a point of discussion and it's a good option. You know, again, the issue is, you know, and then what we kind of live by is the idea that towns need many kinds of people, and many kinds of people need many kinds of housing, and that goes to income levels and affordability levels, but it also goes to configurations. You know, some people need 1 bedroom, some people need 2. You know, I'll give you one example, and it goes to the school children issue. Rutgers University did a study of every state in the nation and the number of school-age children you actually get in a unit. And what they found is intuitive, and it makes sense, and it's been borne out anecdotally, the statistics that they found. For a 1-bedroom multifamily unit, you get 0.04 children. It makes sense. How many parents are going to move into a 1-bedroom unit with a child? So you know, 4 out of 100 you get a child. 2-bedroom multifamily unit, you get 0.27, or essentially 1 child every 4 2-bedroom units. Again, it makes sense. 2-bedroom multifamily units are going to be 2 singles, or a couple that wants a 2nd bedroom as an office/guest room, or grandma who wants a 2nd bedroom for the grandkids. 1 out of 4, you're going to get a parent and a child. 3-bedroom unit goes up to about 1.2 children. But you just don't get that many school children. I know people believe that. You get many more school children in 4 or 5-bedroom colonial than you do with the kinds of units that you don't have and you might think about adding. So, you know, again, the numbers bear it out, and we have those. I actually have about 20 packets here. I didn't know how many people were coming, and I'll leave them on the table, and it gets at some of these numbers. One other point I want to do, Experian, some of you have known, it's a major firm that does consumer research, and there's a graph on here that I can give you that shows you that for different income ranges, and I looked at, in your case, people making 50% of median income in Woodbridge, and people making 80% of median income up to 100, have about the same discretionary income, $12,800 versus $14,400. So if you're thinking about creating more housing in an area that is a commercial area to support merchants, as a lot of towns are doing. I was just in Simsbury the other night, they're doing the same thing. You don't lose much at 50% of median income as compared to 100 in terms of discretionary income. When you get to people making $250,000, that's when they start buying 94-inch flat-screen TVs and Jaguars. But until then, everybody's buying toothpaste and pizzas and that sort of thing. Other questions? Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Have you seen any studies regarding the demographics of the town and voting regarding taxes for school children? I mean, when I look on the score, one of Woodbridge's greatest strengths is its schools. And I think part of the reason is many people here for many years got very invested in the school system because they had kids, they were raising children. I have seen a statistic where our age population of Woodbridge is really on the older end, even for the state of Connecticut, even the baby boomers.
Right.
And I wondered, like, will there be a point where the older population will start voting their own interests, which really wouldn't be to the schools? And when I think about changing the dynamics of the housing to people who aren't vested in one-bedrooms or the one-and-a-half, how that might affect what many people feel in its greatest assets. I feel that with the 55 and up developments as well. So do you know any studies?
Well, I don't know studies, but I have a feel for the issue, so maybe this will help. About 7 or 8 years ago, the town of Oxford, which is not far, decided that 55 and older housing was, like we said, the perfect answer to get plenty of property tax revenue. They built a lot of it, and then they went through 5 budget referendums the next year. Couldn't pass a budget because those older people didn't have children in the schools, and they weren't voting for an increase in the school budget. I think the real issue is that, and I don't quote this number because I have no idea where it comes from, but I will in this small group mention that I once heard that 94% of us have rented at least at some point in our lives. And I mean, my wife and I did, when she was in law school and I was a beginning reporter, we rented a place for a little while and saved up money to buy something. And then saved up a little more money, because what we bought was affordable to us, to buy something a little larger. If you want people to care about the schools, you need younger families. Younger families need lower rungs on the ladder. I'll tell you another interesting offshoot of that issue. A year ago, in the spring 2013 edition of Connecticut Economy, which is the Yukon Economics Journal, Steve Lonsley, executive editor, wrote a piece that showed statistically the towns that have a wider range of units, studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, on up to 5 bedroom units, tend to keep property values higher. Why is that? He showed the statistic. The reason is because those towns have both sellers and buyers for all their units. And they have more churn. And it's not guaranteed that every time you have a transaction, the price is going to go up. But by and large, when you have transactions for housing, the values go up. And that's what he found statistically. So a lot of towns, again, I don't know enough about this town, but a lot of towns are finding that they need to create units that are going to bring in people at the lower end of the ladder, because those are the people that are going to buy the baby boomers' homes and keep those values higher. And then those baby boomers are going to move into the rentals and the condos that those young families, and that's,
the economics of it.
yeah, I mean,
Talking about the voting patterns that will occur when you change.
yeah, so it does affect voting patterns, it does affect the town's grand list. A lot of, if you look at the Warren Group numbers, the Warren Group takes a look at, they publish commercial record, and they look at housing transactions around the state. Sales have inched up since 2008 and the crash. Prices came up a little and now plateaued. Everything under $350,000 is selling in the state, and everything over $350,000, not so many more, offers. And it's taking a longer time for those to sell. And the reason is people can't buy that unless they've lived in something that has allowed them to save up money for a down payment. So we need more buyers in this state, and if we're going to preserve the values. Other questions? Yes.
I'm sorry to ask the question again, but it's based on the survey again. The survey asked a question about cluster housing, basically the same density overall, but you cluster the houses that would be available at a given acreage together. I was wondering if you have any thoughts about whether that's more attractive or less attractive to people from a community perspective.
It's popular. I mean, there are designers that do that. What it does is it can offer the benefits of open space, but also give you the density. I mean, housing creation is not rocket science. The builder buys a unit, a piece of land, let's say for $200,000. If the town only allows him to put one unit of housing on that acre, and the building and the materials and the labor plus another $200,000. Well, now he's got $400,000 into it, and if he wants to make a little profit, he's got to sell for $425,000, $450,000. If the town will let him put 20 units on that acre, now he spreads his land cost over 20 units. Can he do it in a way and design it in a way where he preserves open space and people don't begin to see the projects, they see kind of beautiful housing and nicely landscaped? Yeah, and I think it's possible, but the way you're going to have units in this town, given the land prices in this town and the beauty of this town, you're going to want to go to designs that do that. They give you the density, but also provide the kind of ambiance and the look that people are used to here. So, and other towns are doing that kind of cluster housing.
Is there any data that shows that's more attractive? So say a person
No,
buying Woodbridge or Orange, they would choose Woodbridge if it has this option?
Yeah, well, they say politics is local, housing is really local too, and it really depends on that area and how it looks. And I think you'll have to, figure that out. And the zoning commission will, have to look what the developer proposes.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, well, I'm glad. Oh, I'm sorry.
One more, is there a shortage of housing in Connecticut? No, we're losing.
Yeah, there's a shortage. If you look at it this way, in Connecticut, 39% of all households, about 2 out of 5, spend more than 30% of their income on housing. Now, when I was getting my first apartment, my parents, like probably all of your parents, said don't spend more than 25% of your monthly income on rent. HUD puts it at 30%. If you're paying more than 30%, it's not affordable. So to the extent that 2 out of 5 households are spending more than, are spending 39% of their income, that's not so good for them and terrible for the state's economy because they have a lot less left over for disposable income for other. So to that extent, yeah, there's a shortage. I don't think there's a shortage of units. There are about 3,500 vacant units in Connecticut. They're vacant. I can't vouch for their condition, and they're probably not the mix that a lot of people want. But to the extent that people are paying a lot, yeah, I think you can make the case there's a shortage of the types of units at the income levels of people. Other questions? All right, well, have a good day, and I'm happy to be here, and I will leave a bunch of information here for you that you can take a look at.
Okay, so we've started collecting and looking at the comments that have been put up on the maps in the back under strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities. And I'm just going to summarize, generally summarize what we've received so far under the strengths or things that people particularly like about Woodbridge. We have open space, rural character, and the residential A zoning category. All things people feel are a strength of the community. As Tim was mentioning earlier, we did our analysis and working with COOPOP and the Conservation Commission. We're finding that over 30% of the land area in Woodbridge is under some sort of open space designation, whether that's permanently protected, park space or land that's technically only temporarily protected, like the PA 490 category that the town has. That number includes all of those different things. The rural character is something that we've also noted in some of the responses from the survey, that folks feel that's very important to protect. So I think that's an important thing to discuss today in the breakout sessions. Are, you know, what elements, what exactly is the element of the rural character that you like, that you like the most, and then start thinking about, well, what are some ways in which that can be protected going forward. Talking about the residential A category kind of leads into a larger discussion about zoning in general, and whether folks feel that the zoning as it is now is really what they'd like to see going forward, or if there are changes, you know, whether it's in the Amity area or some other areas of town. That's also a very important thing to discuss today as well, and I think would generate a lot of discussion at our tables. Some of the weaknesses that were identified included the town center and the commercial areas. Again, starting to look at some of the writing comments from the survey, we're seeing similar things being mentioned about the town center not having, let's say, things like coffee shops or other uses like that, with it being primarily governmental and institutional. And also discussion about what to do about the flats, the Amity. That's, you know, that's the economic development area for the town, both now and going forward. So it is very important that we get an idea and a vision of how that should look. There's already been considerable work done with the folks from Yale who've done work with the Economic Development Commission, coming up with ideas for how to develop that area. But that's something else I think would be great if we could have folks discuss today, how they feel at the individual tables about that issue. Transportation and traffic was also noted as a weakness. I think it's particularly apropos with the Route 15 study being done by DOT in the meeting on Thursday night, where they're going to talk about the results of that study. You know, as Tim showed a graph earlier that showed that since 2006, when it looks like traffic sort of in terms of volumes peaked in Woodbridge, and then have since come down a little bit, you know, we look at those numbers and say, you know, if you just take an analytical look at the numbers without any sort of context, you say, well, traffic conditions must be improving in Woodbridge. Anybody who has come up from Westville on Whaley Avenue and chosen either 69 or 63 knows that at particular times of the day, that's very challenging. So there's still definite issues to deal with in terms of traffic, even if overall volumes are showing a slight trend downward. Those two routes are really the lifeblood, the economic lifeblood for your community to get into the Amity Flat and the Flats area. Also, walkability was mentioned as a weakness. There are some sidewalks in Amity, but that's an issue that we noted as well, that increasing walkability in the commercial area is important. So that's also, I think, a very good topic for discussion at the tables. Sustainability regs and LID, which stands for Low Impact Development. Again, these are items that really get addressed in your zoning and your subdivision regulations. And there are a number of different ways to address low impact development in terms of whether it's clustering housing or coming up with ways to create pervious pavement and have those installed. So there's a whole range of issues there. So I was glad to see that was a concern of folks and something that hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about today. Some of the opportunities were identified were housing and retail development. We just did a build-out analysis and looked at those two particular issues. I think it should be on the build-out fact sheet that is at the back of the room. But about 440,000 square feet of new commercial space could potentially go into Amity. A lot of that is concentrated just in a single parcel that's a particularly large parcel. And looking at the housing build-out, when we did the build-out, we, as a conservative measure, we took the assumption, we used the assumption that every single acre of regional water authority land could be developed in the future. Now, that's not likely to happen, but we did that just to see what the numbers would turn out to be. And we had somewhere over 600 potential housing units, but again, a large percentage of those were the result of including the Regional Water Authority land. Once you take that out, there really there isn't a whole lot of land left for residential development in Woodbridge. So that again is something that I think would be a good topic of discussion is, any future housing development, where should that be, should be cited and coordinated with the different areas of town. Housing for professionals and folks over the age of 55 is also mentioned as a potential opportunity. Strengthening local businesses, increasing the amount of space, developing a farmer's market, home businesses. In our economic development fact sheet, we talk somewhat about a concept that's known as economic farming, which is not just going around laying out commercial zoning on new tracts of land. That's sort of the past way that economic development was done. You just simply zone more land for commercial and industrial uses. Obviously, that's not appropriate in a place like in Woodbridge. There aren't going to be large tracts suddenly devoted to high-density commercial or industrial uses. Where you can get economic development in towns that are largely built out and have smaller commercial areas is through creating an environment that is really conducive to folks taking, let's say, a home business and growing it and then filling a space, a vacant commercial space somewhere in town. And trying to help folks just make that leap from being a small one-person operation to having 5 employees and a retail space along Selden Street or along 63 or 69. So that's something that I'm glad was also pointed out as an opportunity. That's one that we've been thinking about. The golf course was brought up, different ideas about the level of development that should go on there or development should occur at all. So I imagine that will, again, be a topic of discussion for the breakout sessions as well. So at this point, we're right about where we should be time-wise. And what we're going to do next is actually break into that initial breakout session. The way this is going to work is if you did not, I hope everyone got a Post-it note with a colored dot on it. If you haven't gotten one, Carly or Allie or Christine in the back has them. Pick one up, and we're going to split into tables based upon the color of the dot on your Post-it note. So if you have a blue dot, you'll be going to one table, and I'll get into that in a minute. Red dot, another table, just so we mix everybody up and get a range of different opinions at each of the tables. What we'd like to do is have you go over the fact sheets and all the information that we have prepared and summarized for today. Talk to each other about what the data means and the information that we put together, what that says to you about the town, and what you think it might mean for the future development of Woodbridge. And then we want to have everyone have a general discussion of the issues that are on your mind. What do you think is going to be important? What's a critical issue now? What do you see coming in the next 10 years as something that's going to be particularly important? And beginning to write these down and come up with a list of items, things that you think need to be considered in the plan of conservation and development. We're going to be, myself and our 3 staff members from Milone MacBroom will be at tables and also circulating around to serve as a resource. We also have folks from TPZ and Conservation Commission. I believe a couple other commissions are represented here today as well. So we have folks here who can be at the tables to serve as resources on particular issues. If you have an issue on economic development, someone should be able to tell you, okay, we've looked at that issue too, and here's what we've come up with. So it sort of have a two-way dialogue with folks that are dealing with these issues on a town-wide basis every day. So I think at this time, also, before I forget to mention, at each of the tables we have a base map of the town. We've included trace paper for folks to use as a base for creating your own planning ideas, how you think the town should be laid out, how it should be developed. We've included a number of layers on the map, including our build-out analysis, which shows the parcels with the highest potential for residential development and commercial development, as well as the zoning for the commercial area down in the flats. So we want to give you the opportunity to sketch out your own plans, you know, whether there's a parcel that you feel needs to be protected, whether there's a particular route you think could be potential for a greenway for the town going forward. Other issues like that, we wanted to provide you with the ability to be able to sketch those things out. So we will be either at the table or circulating between one or two tables to answer any questions that you have, or any topics that you get stuck on. We're going to be there to help jump in and facilitate the conversation. So, all right, at this time, I guess everyone's got to pull out their Post-it note. If you have a blue dot on your Post-it note, we'll go to this first table right here underneath the basketball hoop. Red dot we'll have at the table right behind it. And green dot will be this table right over here. And then the orange dot will be the one directly behind where the camera is here.